Hello. Today I will be conducting an interview with Yuli. My name's Lindsay.
I'm Yuli.
Alright, and I'll be conducting a profile interview. I got you a glass of water if you would like any.
Thank you.
Yep. So today I am interested in getting to know more about your experience in Kosovo and more about you, and mainly more about your experience during the war. And if we have time, then we can talk about your experience as a 7-year-old coming to America. Does that sound okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So as a kid, when did you first understand what was going on around you?
I don't remember too much. I was pretty young. I was about 5 or 6 years old when it happened. The only thing that I do remember was my dad telling us that we had to leave our house because the soldiers were coming into the area, so we had to leave in order for him to keep everyone safe. And I just remember just packing, not even packing anything. We just left, basically left. We left everything in the house, all of our belongings. We probably just packed some clothes, a couple pair of clothes, and then just the money that we had, and then left.
Did you know what was going on? Like, why? Did you know that you were leaving for good, or did you think you were coming back?
At that point, I didn't know anything. I didn't really think about it. It was just everybody kind of like panicked, obviously. So I just went. I'm sure I cried a little bit, but yeah, we just left. I didn't know what was going on.
Did your sisters know what was going on? Like, did you get a lot of support?
Yeah, I mean they were more aware of it, and all of them, like supported me throughout the whole thing, from the youngest to the oldest. So.
Were you in close proximity to, like, the actual war zone? Or, like, did you see and hear a lot of gunshots going on during the day?
Definitely. Our house was right next to a military base, probably like 200 yards away. So our house was like a prime location for them to come in and take over, as far as, the soldiers, because they already took over that military base, and then they wanted to occupy the rest of the nearby houses. So yeah, we were definitely in a war territory zone. So everybody in that area pretty much left.
Being close to the military base, did it put your family in more danger than, like, people who lived in other neighborhoods, or did they experience the same amount of, like, war zone?
Um, well, there were other villages that definitely experienced a lot more killing, a lot more gunshots, whatever. Just military conflict. There were a lot of regions that experienced more than that. But I mean, I'm sure the military base next to our house was pretty crucial in putting us in that situation.
Talking about, like, before and after the people came, did you, like, how did your days change from before the people
Well,
invading and after?
yeah. I went to school. I started first grade. I finished first grade, and then we just stopped going to school. Parents stopped going to work. Everything just stopped. Like, life stopped, and at that time it was a matter of survival. So you had nothing else to worry about. That was just it. You had to survive. You had to fight. You had to do anything to keep, your family safe.
So what did you do, like, in order to survive? Like,
Well, after we left our house, we went to this other huge house where there were other people, and I remember this too. There's a lot of like kids crying, a lot of kids screaming. At that point, then the next day or two, we left and went to the mountains. There's some nearby mountains by our house, and we actually just camped out there for a month or so, and we could hear like bombs, we could hear gunshots, we can hear airplanes flying across the sky. And at that time, we found out that the United States and NATO were involved. So the planes that were flying across were most likely, U.S. military planes. And obviously, since there are a lot of enemy soldiers in that area, we were afraid that, they're going to drop a bomb and, hit the civilians. So we stayed there for some time. And then I think me and my sisters and my mom, we went to the city, to this hideout place. There's, my parents were related to these people somehow. And it was like a hidden house inside of a city where we stayed there for a while. And my dad, he stayed in the mountains while we were in the city, and then they were just going back and forth, back and forth.
Why were they going back and forth?
Saving other people.
Your dad was going back and forth to get more people out?
Exactly. Like cousins and stuff. I remember, we tried to go back home, back to our house to retrieve my bike or something like that, or something. And I remember going back and just ducking and trying to stay safe. And then eventually everybody went to that house, and then we stayed there for a little bit. The men couldn't go outside of the house because they were targets. There were a lot of Albanian snitches, quote unquote, who would tell the soldiers where these men were hiding. My dad he had a pretty big name back home, so the last name, Berisha, it was pretty common to look for. So he didn't really get out of the house that we stayed.
Did you know all of this when you were a kid, or did you figure this out once you came to America?
Not at all. I figured this out once I heard the stories and everything. And in that particular house, there are also some Kosovo military members who were hiding as well, and I didn't know that. I don't think neither of anybody knew that. They were in the basement hiding. So, and we were on the first floor, and nobody knew that. And I'm sure that put our family in danger as well.
So what did you do after you went to the safe house, and from the mountains to the safe house, and then where did you go next?
We stayed there for a little bit with my cousins, and then we decided to go to Macedonia, which was a free zone. So it was a country where nothing was going on. So, and they would transport people into these with buses into free zones. And I remember getting on the bus, hiding. My dad would put some of his money in my coat pockets to hide it, so that we could have money, and that's the only thing that we did have. And I remember we were on the bus with a bunch of other people, a bunch of other civilians escaping. And I remember the soldiers, we would have checkpoints throughout the journey, throughout the travel. And at one checkpoint, they were going to take my oldest sister. I don't remember why. My parents have told me before, I just can't remember why that was the case. But my dad had to beg the soldiers not to take her away from them. And they were asking us, do we have money? Do we have this? And we just said, no, we don't have anything. We're just trying to escape. So that was pretty scary. I mean, I don't remember a lot of it. I just remember parts. I remember I was crying a little bit, a lot probably. And we were also scared because this transportation, like I said, when the U.S. started getting involved, they didn't know what was on the ground, so they could have easily shot our bus, who was a bunch of civilians. They didn't know that because it was a military driver, transporting us. So that also kept us in danger. So I think we were very lucky enough to escape.
You said there were soldiers on the bus. Those were Kosovo soldiers, or?
I don't think they were Kosovo, so I'm not really sure. I might have to ask my parents, but it was that bus was pretty much could have been a target for the U.S.
Did you know at that time why, like, they weren't? I mean, they were killing you guys in, like, Kosovo where you lived. Like, why didn't they want to be by you when you were on the bus? Like, why did they let you go pass on the bus?
At that point, I mean, a lot of civilians were killed. It wasn't a military conflict. It wasn't, our military versus their military. It was their military just cleaning out everybody out of this area. At that point, I believe when the U.S. started getting involved, they knew that they couldn't, take this bus and kill everybody at that point, because then it was just, it was just a human right that you wouldn't do. Obviously, it was a human right in the beginning as well, but nobody was involved at that time, so nobody knew until, America started getting involved, and then they're like, all right, maybe we're not supposed to kill civilians. So I guess maybe that was the reason they let us go, but yeah, I'm not completely sure.
So then after you took the bus, and where did you go from there? Like, how did you end up in America?
We went to Macedonia. Like I said, it was a free zone that a lot of refugees escaped to from Kosovo and other places. And then we stayed at a house. I remember my aunts, they were talking about a camp, refugee camp, and I'm not sure where that was. Maybe it was in Macedonia, maybe it was in Kosovo, I'm not sure. But they signed up, for us to have a chance to go to the United States. And that, that made it possible, I guess. We were allowed to do that, so we went to Macedonia. We got all our papers done. My dad, he had a job. He had his own business back home. We had a home that, was destroyed, was burned down. But, at that point, we weren't sure that we were supposed to go back because we didn't know if it was going to get better. We didn't know if it was going to get worse. So we decided to take the chance of coming to the United States through the refugee system, refugee camps and stuff like that.
Do you remember how you said that you were waiting to, like, figure out if you, like, qualified to come to the U.S. Do you remember how it felt during that time, or did you not know anything about that?
At that time, we were with my cousins, who are now in Canada. They got chosen to go to Canada. They chose to go to Canada. We chose to go to the United States. At that time, we were safe. We weren't, we were just happy to be alive and happy to be with our families. That I didn't know what was going on at that time.
Do you remember it still being, like, tense in that situation, or was everyone, like, relieved that they were gone from the area and it was, like, more happy, or?
Oh, definitely. We had, we had a house. We had these people that were like, stay in our house for, this amount of time. We were just glad, we were able to escape the war. And I'm sure, my parents, obviously they still had that, feeling of not being safe because, throughout a whole timeline, we weren't safe. We were just hoping that we'd be safe. But now, we were actually safe. We didn't think, like, somebody would come and, bother us and get us out the home. But at the same time, obviously they were a little tense about it.
So then after that, you just flew over here on a plane to America, and did you come right to Wisconsin, or did you go somewhere else prior to that?
Yeah, so when you bring somebody to the States, you have to give them a visa. My cousin, who was going to school at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, he sent my dad a visa for all of us to come here. And that's why we came to Madison, because he was going to school in Madison. So and he's like, this is a great place. He was actually, he went to high school here, and then college, and then got his master's in Madison. So he was like, yeah, this is a great place for you guys to come. You guys can start your life here, and see where it takes you.
That's interesting. It's really weird to think about, like, what you went through as a kid compared to like being here in America, and you were only like 5 to 7 years old and all this was going on, and you went on a bus hiding from guns and war and everything, and then to a rescue camp, and then back to America. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was a journey.
All right, well, thank you. It was a pleasure interviewing you. Thank you for giving me your time and explaining your experience to me.
Thank you for allowing me to do that.